Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us in the next session of our mental health events. I'm really delighted to introduce Yehudis this evening, Yehudis Goldsobel, who is a absolutely incredible woman who has founded this week of Sexual Abuse and Sexual Violence Awareness Week, as well as the organisation Migdal Emunah, which we'll talk about in a moment. I was very interested to hear from Yehudis, just briefly, that this Awareness Week, you said it was in other countries in the world, but actually wasn't something that was here. Do you want to just start explaining a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. When I first started Migdal Emunah and was working in the sector, so I was meeting loads of different organisations in the third sector, I was working with statutory agencies. I just assumed that we had a calendar week or a month or even a day where we discussed these things or campaigns were promoted to do with sexual abuse and sexual violence. And the more I asked people, everyone was like, yeah, no, we don't have this here. In America, they have an entire month for it, to promote awareness and education and the campaigns and events.
It's this time of year as well?
Theirs is in a couple of months, it's April.
Okay.
But most sort of first world countries have a designated part of the calendar for discussion and awareness raising. So I pulled a lot of people that I knew in different parts of working with victims and survivors. So the Met Police, NSPCC, 1in4, loads of different organisations working with different groups of victims and survivors in different capacities. And ask them to brainstorm when we can fit it on the calendar, when would be the best time, making sure it didn't clash with too many other things, but it's impossible to find a week that isn't got something else.
Yes, there's a lot of awareness, it's true, but this was very important to bring to people's attention.
Yeah, so we finally agreed on it, and the first year, it took about 1.5 years to pull it all together. We launched it at City Hall in London. We had an event, we had some amazing speakers, and it just sort of cemented the date. It's always going to be the full week of February, and the hashtag is It's Not Okay. And every year it's just basically grown, and the conversation actually on social media has gone far beyond just the UK. We get a lot of people joining the conversation from other countries, and there's, I think, I can't even keep track of the amount of tweets and campaigns being shared. And that was the main reason behind it, was all the organizations had done and invested so much money and time into campaigns, hoping, we try to make sure it hits the mark, or I'm sure, the same is for any organization. Are we going to get our message across? Do we have enough content and material? And it just takes a lot of effort for it to sometimes not really get much scope or coverage or anything that it really should do.
Right.
So it's a really good opportunity for people to almost recycle campaigns they've done throughout the year to sort of boost it, give it another platform, share resources that they have. So there's been quite a few charities sharing different resources they have, book lists, materials people can read. So yeah, it's been really good.
And it's been about 5 years of the Awareness Week, is that right?
Yeah. This is the 5th year.
Right. And to go back to Migdal Emunah, how that started and how long ago that's been, how you got off the ground.
So this is like even further back. In 2011, I reported the person who abused me to the authorities, and within a few months he was arrested. And our community, being wondrous and amazing that it is for lots of things, is also super spreading at gossip and news. And it was not obviously in any papers yet because it was still all anonymized and it hadn't even got to court, but people were sharing my number, and I was just getting loads of phone calls from people at that time in the Haredi community who just wanted to share their experiences. They suddenly had a name and a number to put to the topic of sexual abuse, and there wasn't one before. So they just wanted to be heard. They just wanted someone to hear them, listen to their stories. And every few weeks there was a few more people, and before I knew it, I was actually spending hours just listening and supporting people on the phone. At the time, I obviously still had this trial going on. I was at uni in my second year studying psychology.
Wow.
And I was working 2 part-time jobs. It was a bit busy. So I asked the women and the men if they would attend a separate group, one for men, one for women, that I would hire a facilitator, a trained therapist that can work with trauma. And I rented a room in the library, and the women agreed to meet, the men didn't. And it was the most amazing thing. It was a room of strangers. That nobody knew each other, came from all different parts of the Haredi community, from like Northwest London and Stamford Hill. And we started meeting regularly every fortnight. And as the month went on, the phone calls just increased. And I approached all our charities in the community that sort of relate somewhat to welfare, or that would somehow relate to sexual abuse. And I said, look, we've got this group of people, and it's like an already existing group. They're desperate for services. Can you take them on and develop something? And everyone said no. It didn't meet remit. It didn't meet funding. People didn't have the money to do a project like this, or the skill set or the training.
This was specifically, sorry to interrupt you, because it was the Jewish community, the religious Jewish community. There was in sort of nationally, but not for this specific.
Yes.
Place.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess we could address that as well. Why do we need our own charity, like for the Jewish community? But there is.
Well, we have it with lots of other charities. So
we do, and it as the time progressed, I put the paperwork in. We became an official charity, and then. After my court case had finished and the trial, I waived my anonymity and I did an interview with the Jewish News and the JC. And I suddenly was just getting emails from loads of people across the community. And I was a bit naive till that point, thinking it was mostly a Haredi problem. That's just where I grew up and that's where I saw it and that's where people were coming from. And suddenly I just had loads of emails and phone calls from people who were from every part of the community, some who don't identify as any part, but just said, I'm Jewish and this happened to me and I want help. And then
you at this point, you're not an organization, you're just you as a.
It was just me for the first few years.
Right, wow.
I managed to rope in some people I know to be trustees, people that I'd met through working in schools and teachers. And we basically, I started developing policies. Trustees were pointing out things as we went, but nobody was exactly, this was first for all of us. Developed policies quite literally on what we need and what we saw the need to be. We needed an independent advice and support for anybody in the community that had concerns about sexual abuse. Initially, we really wanted to do training, education, awareness raising, but we just were constantly bogged down by the need.
All these people contacting you, yeah. right, it sort of takes over.
Yeah, it's the urgent thing, isn't it? It's people with a need, it's more pressing, it's more crisis management.
Somehow everything else will fall together.
We hope. I mean, we need a miracle, we need a few more of me, but it will slowly come together. Every year that we're still pushing through, we've got more staff. We just took on someone new this past week in Manchester. So the staff team is growing and the project means it can grow and the client base can also grow. So it's really good. But for me, it was just shocking that there's just something extremely raw and vulnerable that when you've experienced sexual abuse or sexual violence in any way, so whether it's on campus at university or in your home or your neighbor or school or whatever it is, it just makes you exceptionally vulnerable. And people just want someone that gets it. And every single time someone comes to us, it's like a tick box for words. I know they're going to say this. It's, oh, wow. I just want to speak to someone that gets it. Because, it doesn't matter what pocket of the community you come from, there's still something about the community as a whole that has its own dynamic. That will people know? Will my family be judged? Will my parents? It's a small community. We all still know everyone, even if we go to different schools. So there is something about people just wanting to access services where people would get it. People do access services outside the community as well, but a lot of the people, most of the people that come to us, it's because they just want someone that gets the Jewish aspect as well.
Right, right. And obviously, I'm assuming some of these situations are from within the community as well. Are some without and some within? But is the majority abuse within the community, or you can't really gauge that?
You can't really gauge it, but based on the fact that over 90% of abuse is perpetrated by someone known to the victim.
Yeah, yeah.
So if they know the person, the likelihood is they're part of their community or their social network or their school network or their shul network. So they've known them in some capacity before, which means they are most likely part of the community in some way, shape or form.
Right. So you mentioned about a range of people from the community. Are we talking even Reform, Conservative, Modern Orth, like really, as soon as you went into the sort of Jewish News, Jewish Chronicle, etc., it branched out?
Exactly.
Right.
And also, it's not also only victims and survivors that reach out. We have parents reaching out with concerns. We have...
Oh, okay, you're wider than just the individual.
It's just a hub of information that is not readily accessible anywhere else. So they know that if they come to us, they can just say, here's the scenario. This is our phone calls. It's all hypotheticals. You most times don't get names. A lot of the times it's from anonymous or withheld numbers. And it's, here's my hypothetical situation and what am I meant to do, or what can I do, or what are my options? And people testing the water to see what can they do. Do
you get my friend, I think my friend,
yes.
Right, I see what you're saying.
And
it's a big step.
It's a massive step because a lot of the people have never said it out loud to other people. So it's now saying it to some random person on a phone. So it's just, can I trust you? Do you get what I'm saying? I'm just going to test the water here. And it's, the range of people that call is vast. And a lot of the people that call us are people that are connected to children. So through schools, through youth work, through shuls, with, oh, I saw this, is it something to be concerned about? Or a child has done this, what am I meant to do? So it's a lot of signposting people and supporting them to make the best decision.
So what is the age range you've offered services to? Do you know? I don't know if you know. I assume there are people with history who've approached as well. You know, it happened 20 years ago. Or
so the youngest clients we've worked with is a bit stomach churning, is 2.
Oh goodness. So can I ask who contacted you in that context?
The non-abusing parent.
Right. Goodness me.
Or parents when something has happened at a different setting. And the oldest person that I've spoken to that disclosed was 87. And I was the first person they told.
And that was historical, because obviously older people do get abused as well, but that was a historical case.
Yeah, it was when they were a child.
Goodness. And if they contact you, you have therapists, like what's the process?
So the hypothetical call is our opportunity to give them the right information, but also to reassure them that we're still here when they want to come back to get further questions answered, clarity, advice. It's almost like we try our best to hook them in, to know that we're here and that these are our numbers and they can call or email and we will try our best to sort of respond. And so sometimes it could take a dozen phone calls until we get a name, until we get something tangible to work with. And sometimes we get people who just like to quickly dump everything on the first phone call and say, this is my experience and I need help. So we do, then I refer it into either our Manchester services or London, and our ISVAs, Independent Sexual Violence Advisors, will pick up the case and do an assessment and see what they need and what they want. It's mostly about telling them what's available to them. So we have support groups, we have counselling, both for couples, individuals, family. So it depends if they want any of those things. If they want us to go with them or help them to go to report it to the police or to social services, depending on the sort of case it is. Sometimes people need medical help, so we accompany them to GPs or to medical appointments. And sometimes people want rabbinical help. So we have a few rabbis or advice that we ping emails to, and they anonymously respond, and we just pass it back to them. I think that's the biggest part of why we need to be independent, is because we can just facilitate the information passing, so to speak.
Yeah. Do you have people who, I don't want to compare, but like Alcoholics Anonymous, they want to meet other people, they want to discuss in that sort of format as well?
Yes.
Right.
It's really hard though, because we don't really have that format, because we want to make sure that everyone else in our group is safe.
Yes.
So we do an assessment, and we do make sure that people that join the group are committed to staying in it for a certain amount of time, because it just unsettles everybody else to then share with someone who then vanishes.
Right.
But I mean, that's another sort of brainstorming idea that I've had on my table pile for years, that we do need a version of Alcoholics Anonymous, not per se for the Jewish community, but for everybody, for sexual violence. Because however much we go through periods of therapy, there is always at some point in life something that will be triggering. And it doesn't mean that I then need to go and say, I need to go and book in for loads of counselling and, invest a lot of money and time. It just means I need to touch base with other people that can get it and relate and ground me, and then check out again. But know that it's a safe space to do that, and it's relatable. So there is something to be said for sort of peer-to-peer support in a non-committed way, but there isn't something like that yet anywhere.
I mean, it was, I don't know if incredible is the right word, but when Me Too came about, to see like my Facebook feed filled with women mainly who have somehow been abused or interfered with sexually or raped. I mean, the range was quite large, and they were out there and they were saying it. And it was, I guess, I don't know if comfort's the right word, but for a lot of women to see, I'm not alone. It has happened to so many, sadly and tragically, this has happened to so many women.
Yeah.
And that also, I assume, had an effect on your organisation.
It did. But then again, every time anything Jewish related to sexual abuse is in any media platform, we get people in response to that. And our main busy time, which is going to sound really horrible, is Pesach. It is our busiest time of the year. We get an influx of peak calls, people in crisis, because they are made to sit at a Seder or go home to family, where oftentimes the abuser is there. If it's
the equivalent being Christmas, I guess, it's right.
So we get over Pesach, we normally, this year was really bizarre, but normally a regular Pesach, we get a lot of phone calls for people that have just can't take it anymore or are too triggered. And that seems to be our peak trend over the past few years.
It's really...
Me Too is definitely an opportunity for lots of people who don't want to access services, or who might not want to tell people around a Shabbos table, to basically say, you know what, here's my experience, everyone else is going with it, I'm going to go with it, and tell my Facebook feed or tell my social media world. I think for people, it was a stark reality of how many people are victims and survivors. We only know of the few people who speak up publicly about it, or who waive their anonymity and are happy to talk about it. But for the most part, most victims and survivors of sexual abuse will live with it and not tell the world. the numbers that they are, I think it's like 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will experience some form of sexual assault before their 18th birthday, which means we all know a lot more people than we actually think we know. It's just they haven't told us.
Right.
And they don't need to. But I guess Me Too gave people that were thinking about it or were maybe saw it and happy to do that then an opportunity to do it.
And if you have somebody who approaches you and you point them in the direction of your counsellors, but you see there's also other mental health issues that may need attention, or maybe other things, do you point them to other organisations? You have that connection, or how does that work?
We sometimes point them in other directions. It's very difficult because sometimes people don't want the referral to come from us. So we can signpost people and we say, you can give this organisation a call. And we will do that for some organisations in the community and say, you know, call this person, this number, and you can get an assessment. Sometimes we can do referrals into services in the community and out. And then it's also like when we say we work with GPs, we communicate with the permission of the client with their GP to see, can they get a psychologist? Can they access this? What can they get? And yeah, we just try to work in a bit more of a holistic way, because we try to take away the clients having to run around like headless chickens, so to speak. You know, you're knocking on every agency and every organization's door. Do I fit your remit? Can I get some counseling? You know, they shouldn't have to do that. When you're ready to access help, it should just be a bit more streamlined.
How many are in your team?
So there's 2 ISVAs now in Manchester and 1 in London, and we are hopefully going to take another one on in London soon. And then there's me and someone that helps with the accounts.
Oh, okay. So, and
small.
How many cases are you, if you can tell us, how many cases are you dealing with at a time?
So COVID sort of really messed this all up. I'm not quite sure, because anything that was meant to go to court is obviously going to schlep like massively now. Okay. So some clients are only getting to court at the end of this year, and they've already been sitting on it for 2 years. So if we would have thought we would have ended with that client, it's going to go on for a lot longer now. But I don't have exact figures off the top of my head, but we are quite stretched. And every client takes a different amount of need and attention and time. Some just want to check in every fortnight, and some want, you know, every other day to talk, check in. It depends if there's updates, if there's, you know, letters and stuff, what they need. So yeah, it varies on the need, and the client numbers, I can't give you a number off the top of my head.
That's okay. That's okay. And you've also mentioned that obviously this isn't only something that goes on in the Jewish community. Yeah. You work with other faiths, other minority groups.
Yeah. So through the years, I've met other people that are doing sort of the same sort of work in other organizations in the Muslim community, the Sikh community, Asian community. I've done some talks and presentations in some of them, because, you know, when we talk, we just say we can take out the words Jewish, Muslim, Sikh, Catholic, Christian, and sadly, a lot of the issues and the cases are very similar. So yes, it's about trying to share and learn from each other. So we're not reinventing the wheel, but there is a lot of networking, so to speak.
I think one of the hardest things from what I've read and I've seen and I've heard is children who are abused, and they don't understand what's going on. They don't know, they're confused, they're told to obviously not tell anyone, they don't know their body, and the way that one day they suddenly are aware of, let's say, an organization, or someone asks them the right question. This is a huge problem, right? It's particularly in, let's say, the more Orthodox communities, of children not understanding what's happening to them.
Yeah. So most children don't understand what's happening, because again, most of the time it's by someone you know. So it's confusing. it's a bit like, wait, is this because you love me? Is this because you are caring for me? Is this, I don't like it, but I'm not sure what you're doing. So most children don't quite understand what's going on. I think the more Haredi part of the community we go, the lack of, I say that Haredi community, but I can't tell you how many parents across the spectrum have fancy names for body parts. You know, it is so not helpful.
Right.
There is nothing worse than sitting opposite a 38-year-old man who did not know his correct names for his body parts, and he called it a thing.
38, did you say?
Yes, came from the Haredi part of the community, but he called it a thing in Yiddish.
Right.
And, you know, can we say that's only a Haredi issue? Because I've heard people that are not even, you know,
Wow.
religious or Jewish who still have fancy names or nicknames for body parts. And the problem with that is, how do they ever disclose enough to get anyone's attention? You know, if you're in the middle of something and a child says to you, someone tried to touch my thingy, you are not going to turn around. Then if someone said, you know, someone tried to touch my penis, you will stop.
Yeah, yeah.
It will get your attention. And it's just so important that everyone teaches children the correct body parts. Educating children is a massive arena of issues. It's how much do we teach them? What do we teach them? I'm a fan of teaching the correct body parts, because even if worst case scenario, God forbid, something does happen and it needs to go to court, your child needs to be able to say what happened and not say someone touched my flower. You know, it just, that doesn't happen, and it just doesn't help the child or anyone else. So I'm a big fan of saying correct body parts. You know, it also helps for medical things as well.
Yes.
But when it comes to what do we teach children, what do we teach them in school, how do we teach them? I think we've sort of jumped on this bandwagon of we should all be teaching children to say no, run away, and tell a trusted adult is like the new trend. It doesn't work. Do children say no to someone they know who they're confused about what they're doing?
No,
I mean, what's the likelihood that's going to happen?
Right.
No. They, you know, it just isn't feasible. And it's also putting the entire responsibility on children to protect themselves from sexual abuse. What are we doing? We're the adults. We're supposed to protect children from sexual abuse, and they just don't have the skill set, the intellect, the capacity to even think in that way. So teaching children the correct body parts, having open conversations with children, that they know they can talk to you when someone stole their pencil, as well as when something really, really serious is happening, that there is that open channel of communication is way more important and valuable. There was some research done that a lot of people said they tried to tell their parent something had happened, but because the parent dismissed it and didn't quite grasp what was happening at that first instant, the child then didn't say it again for another 7 to 10 years or something like that. I can't remember the exact year.
Right.
So I think it's just important to have those channels of communication that you know straight away then, hopefully. But I think it also comes down to educating people around children. Like, take the children out the equation. You know, we can't educate them to do this. It's a massive ask. But can we educate teachers, teachers assistant, LSAs, anyone working in a school, anyone working in a youth service, a club, a shul, anywhere that you might interact with children, any of their extracurricular activities? Because most of the times it's those people who will pick up on something being amiss, who will see that maybe this child has suddenly started behaving differently, or not engaging how they used to, or disliking something they used to like, and vice versa. And they are the ones that can get help sort of way.
Is that your remit? Do you make connections with schools and youth groups at all, or is there another organisation needed?
It's definitely a whole nother project of work.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And I think whatever it is, it needs to be done in tandem with working and supporting victims and survivors, because I think it feeds, the data feeds into itself then, and we're not then losing track of what the aims are. When you hear, you know, people often tell me that I come across way too aggressive about it and I'm angry, and I'm like, yeah, if you heard the things I heard on a daily basis, you'd be angry too.
I'm sure.
And I think that content that we hear on a daily basis should feed how we teach people to respond or to look out for or what to do in scenarios and situations. So I think if there's no connection there, it's a bit like, is one leading the way? Is one helpful? Is it not? What are we doing?
Do you think the NSPCC, I know they've released certain videos and things, that's helpful what they're doing?
Their Pants campaign has been sort of like, nationally famous. It's in almost every school, let's not say all schools, but it's in a lot of schools, and a lot of parents can use it. It's so easily accessible. They've got different projects over the years, and I know they're releasing different resources. It's just, how accessible is it? And are we making sure, you know, who's going to make sure it joins up between what they're offering and what's going on in our community?
Right. You seem that you're dealing with a lot, as you said, while you sometimes feel angry, passionate, I like to say. How do you unwind? How do you offload? Because it is a lot. And I don't know if in your mug you've got maybe a bit of wine or something, or it's actually tea.
It's actually a mint tea, like I'm that, I think. But it's really, really hard. Some weeks is harder than others. And I think, you know, we make sure, well, I make sure that all our staff have supervision, clinical supervision, and management supervision. And
do you want to, just in case anyone doesn't know, briefly explain? I know what it is, but I don't know if you want to.
Supervision for especially clinical is effectively bringing your work, but without the names and without too much detail, but the scenarios and the cases in which we're working and how we've responded and how it's affected us and how we can better respond. It's a way of sort of clearing our mind in understanding what we did and how we did it, and did we do the best thing, because otherwise it sits on your brain.
It's a type of, I mean, I don't know if this is the proper term, it's supportive therapy-ish, sort of like.
Yeah, that's good words, yeah. So we've all got that, which sometimes, you know, it's really hard to fit it in, and I'm not going to lie, I've not been in a while, and I should, because I should be practicing what I preached. But we make sure as well to have like a team meeting once a week on Zoom, just to make sure we're all, you know, touching base with each other. We're working in a really small team, but we're also working in isolation, which was actually happening before COVID, because, you know, we've got people in Manchester, and we've got a base in Golders Green, but we all work different days and have different clients and different days at core. So it's, you know, a bit like ships in the night, and it's good to just have a one time of the week to check in with everyone. But I struggle to unwind sometimes. I eat an awful lot of chocolate. I try to go for walks, and I try to run when I can, just because it forces my brain to clear. But yeah, it's not
so, and obviously at the moment everything is more intense, it seems, with what we're stuck in and everything.
And now my work is all over my house as well, which is also, you know, weird.
I recently saw Migdal Emunah released a couple of videos about myths surrounding sexual abuse, sexual violence, which were short and powerful. I recommend people watch them. They can find them on Migdal Emunah's Facebook page. Any that you can stick out right now that we can just sort of share with people?
There was quite a few good ones. Well, mine was this, what I just said before about teaching children to say no. It's a bit of a myth. What else did we have? Someone said that, you know, what a woman is wearing, that she was almost blamed asking for it, or
that's a really interesting one. I mean, I remember reading an article quite a few years ago where there's I can't remember which country it was, and they had a museum, or maybe an exhibit showing clothing of women who were raped. I don't know if it was one country or different countries, And, you know, they're not wearing, well, let's not even decide what they might have been wearing, but they're just wearing regular clothing, you know, and I think that's a really strong one, that
I know, that was very powerful.
It's about power and control. It's not about sexual attraction, or I don't know, I didn't want to twist it into that.
It's totally exactly that. It's totally nothing you were wearing, not you were doing, saying, looking. It was just, it's all on the offender, to be frank. You choose to offend or not to offend, and they chose to offend.
Yeah, and I think that's also a balance that seems to be the wrong way, that very often, you know, or the victim, no, the rapist or abuser shouldn't do this and they shouldn't do that, and they're the one in the wrong.
Yeah.
And as I said, we've definitely had high profile cases in the newspaper. You know, I'm not going to mention names. I'm sure everybody's aware, only because they make me feel ill, these people. And it shows that this is just, what can I get away with, and it's narcissistic, it's all of it. It's not about any sort of love or caring or anything like that, which is what they try and impart, really, sometimes, isn't it? That what's going on in this situation. So I'm trying to think of some of the other myths that came up. I think another one was saying that about people, once they've had therapy, then they're over it, or something like that. Like,
we've heard that a lot, that, well, surely if you've paid for X amount of sessions, they should be fine now, and they're over it, and they can get over it.
It's a long time ago.
And I'm just like, it's like measuring what? You're measuring someone's trauma with your ruler, like, you know, it doesn't work like that. And there was another one that also said about reliable witnesses. You know, it's such a myth that when people might stumble on a detail, when it gets to court especially, you know, they're penalized for it because, oh, look, they're lying, or they've made it up, or whatever, when in fact we're talking about like serious trauma. And I mean, some of us can't even remember what we ate for dinner last week, but you're asking someone who's experienced serious trauma to recall a sequence of order of details of probably more than one incident of abuse or assault.
And some quite young as well. I mean, they are.
And there's also a level of research has shown, like, disassociation, that, you know, you just want to go away from that place, so your mind switches off. And how are you going to recall details if you do that? You know, so the expectation is a lot in society on victims and survivors to talk. We do it actually everywhere. I can't tell you the amount of times I've been asked by newspapers or journalists, not in the community, I'm saying in just society, do you have a new victim we could talk to?
Wow.
No, I don't have a black book of victims who are just waiting to waive their anonymity to talk to you, to make it more emotive for the readers or the viewers. We shouldn't be reliant on victims and survivors to share their experiences, to prompt us to feel something, to want to respond. You know, it's a bit of a unrealistic expectation.
Absolutely. So it seems like you have all different sorts of things that come at you, that you deal with and have to deflect. And you get contacted, obviously, by the national press as well. I've seen your name in national press as well, and on the BBC, things like that. So how are they finding you? Do you know? Do you ask them? Might not be something you're aware of. I don't know.
I think it's more like who knows who. When I did a lot of the BBC stuff a few years ago, I knew a couple of the people there, and they said, you know, speak to her. She's expert on Jewish and sex abuse stuff. So then, you know, obviously they'll contact. If anything goes into the media now, we'll sometimes get an email saying, you know, you're the only one doing this. You know, can you point us in the right direction? But yeah, it's a bit of a juggling one from all sides, really.
You don't have to answer this. Your kids are quite young. What happens when they say, "Mummy, what do you do?" Or they're in school and they have to do a project on Mummy's or Daddy's job? It may not have come up yet. I don't know if you've thought about it, but
I haven't thought about it. He's not really asked yet. It's a funny one because we joke at work because we call it the Shabbos table stopper.
Like, have you got a guess? What's your job?
Yeah, and then people always regret asking, and they're like, whoa, you know, and then actually they come back a few minutes later and they're like, got a mountain of questions. It's because I guess people, it's a bit unexpected. I don't know what I would tell him. I guess I'd just be honest though. I mean, help people that have experienced trauma maybe, or...
Yeah, I'm quite sure you'd be capable of, as you said, dealing with children and telling them the right way to express things. So
yeah, I think my worries are more at how do I tell the teachers and the staff when he starts school. You know, I've taught him the correct body parts, and he's very confident to say to his teacher now, you know, actually this is hurting, or this, or whatever it might be. And sometimes it takes the adults a bit aback, like, oh wait, you know the words, but then they know what I do, so it's almost like a bit expected now.
Right. I'm going to, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add right now. We could open up to the floor. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. I'm just going to put it on gallery view to see, has anybody got anything they want to ask or contribute to either myself or Yehudis, or just lots of things to think about maybe?
Can I say something?
Please, yes, please.
Yeah. Yehudis, you say that, you know, for goodness sake, we're here to look after our children. But it can't be that way, because abusers are crafty as well. You know, they look for when children are on their own. I mean, you can't be with the child 24/7, especially in school. They could be abused in school. It could be a parent or brother, uncle, and you cannot be with them. We can't. You know, we do have to teach them, you know, not to let people touch them, you know, except for a doctor or a parent. You know, we just, you know, we just do have to. I mean, a lot of abusers do pick jobs where they'll be involved with children.
Exactly, yes. And I think we can teach children that if we want to teach them that. We shouldn't expect them
to
hold the responsibility of putting into action what we taught them. Because
but it gives them a chance.
Things wrong?
It gives them a chance, and it means as well they will come home to us and say, "Mummy, so and so touched me where you said I shouldn't." They shouldn't. So yes, it does
exactly. And if you have that open communication, they will most definitely come and, you know, hopefully say it to you.
Yes.
But it's also like the number of cases we have had. I'll give you an example. It's a teacher's assistant in a school. I cannot tell you the number of calls we get from people working in schools. These are non-abusing members of staff who called us and said, I'm in a classroom with 5-year-olds, and the 5-year-old drew a picture of his family, and all his family members had giant genitalia. Now, this was in an extremely frum school. So her flags went, whoa, you know, What are they doing? Like, this shouldn't happen. Reported it to the manager, and the manager said they'll deal with it. A couple of weeks later, nothing happened. So this teacher went back, kept trying to push. There was no system in place for this teacher's assistant to carry this forward. So she was left hoping that the manager would do something. She, about 2 or 3 months later, got in touch with us and said, my manager still hasn't done anything. I'm really worried for this child. Needless to say, the school, I don't know if anyone knows this, but in this country, we do not have mandatory reporters, which means people are not held criminally responsible for reporting concerns or disclosures of sexual abuse. You know, we're the only first world country that doesn't have this in place. So she was stuck in a system that she didn't want to be the whistleblower, because we all know what that's like in our community, but wanted to get this child help. And it took us a good few weeks of working with her to get the parents engaged with us. Now, the risk was one of the parents could be the abuser, which we would have found out straight away if they would have shut us down. The parents were horrified and shocked and started working with us and engaging in therapy. We got the child into therapy. And after a few weeks of therapy, the child told the therapist that his cousins did this to him on Shabbos at grandparents' house.
Right.
Now, The manager still hasn't done anything. So we are like 4 or 5 months down the line, and this TA is sitting on it. The child did not have the right words to say anything to the parents because didn't have a clue what was going on. It was just cousins playing, older cousins. We managed to work with this child. We even managed to convince the parents to call in their sister and brother-in-law to meet with us and our therapist as well, to find out what's going on and where did their kid find it or get this new game that they were playing. Turned out the older cousin, who was preteen, had this happen to her at camp, and they told her, this is how you make friends. So think of all the people in this chain who could have intervened at any point to stop the children and protect them. But instead, the children were just sort of left in this, not sure what to do with it. And even if they would have had the words, no one actually had the knowledge or skill set or information with where to go and take it, aside from let's report it to the manager. So from my perspective, if we would teach all our camp people, all our education people, can you imagine how many people along that journey would have been more empowered that actually, I know where to go with this. My manager's not doing anything, but I can do something. Or this just doesn't look right, I'm going to inquire even. So while we can teach children some elements of, only a doctor or your parents can help you touch you in your private parts to keep you clean or safe or whatever, ultimately they cannot stop abuse from happening, and they cannot articulate it or understand it enough to relay to us what we need to know.
Thank you, Hudis, for a very quite traumatic and clear answer. There are a few questions in the chat. Can you access them, or do you want me to read them out? There's are all the people you work with in the charity has been abused? I think that
not the staff, no, or the clients, yes.
Right.
But we do work with people that have experienced sexual abuse and sexual violence, as well as their families. So in the case where there's non-abusing parents, or if the parents aren't abusive at all, we'll work with the parents and the children. We'll also sometimes work with the siblings, to try to make sure that they can all sort of heal in the process after this. We have worked with teachers and professionals around a case. Oftentimes we work with social workers as well to support them in supporting people. So it's a bit of a team effort, but not always directly with the victim themselves.
Sorry.
I'm just reading it.
How does your organisation manage situations where communities here and all over the world can blame the victim and seem to side with the abuser? This then victimises the victim twice over having been brave to disclose in the first place. That came up on the video, one of the myths video thing.
I totally agree with all of that. It's we call it in our work secondary trauma, because it's not only is it, when someone discloses, they just want to be heard and they just want to be listened to. And not always do they want something. They don't necessarily want a plan or a counsellor. They just want someone to hear it. And when certain parts of the community respond in ways that are the most counterproductive, silencing people, just
brushing it under the carpet is a common phrase.
Brushing that under the carpet, but that's a common practice in a lot of places. It's almost like in the more Haredi part of the community, when they respond with labeling the victim as, mentally ill or victim blaming or, whatever else it might be, and then shunning them and taking the side, so to speak, of the offender or the alleged offender, and sometimes showing up for them at court. It is a secondary trauma. It's another whole trauma in itself when the community that is around you labels you as the problem, so to speak. So I hope that answers that one.
And we've got, has COVID made you busier? Have more people come forward?
So we went really, really quiet in terms of obviously hearing from schools. So we had nothing from children from as soon as lockdown started last March until I think we got a call in October from people at schools. So that's a big chunk of months that we had no children and young people like that we could support or were in contact with. And then it sort of picked up again in November. I don't think for 1 second the abuse was reduced. So I'm pretty sure that the case numbers are going up now. So they're slowly coming back in, if that makes sense, but they're still not in school, and it's still exceptionally difficult to access children and young people now.
Another question is, do the Haredi community support you as an organisation?
No, most certainly not.
But you obviously do get contacted by people from the Haredi community. Yeah.
Yes, leadership. I'm guessing we're talking about leadership. And, you know, from my perspective, the leadership's main objective is the community as a whole, as a collective group. And, you know, numerous rabbis in leadership positions have told me that it's easier to just get rid of the 1 or 2 issues, so the few victims or people that want to speak out, than it is to sort of unsettle the whole community. So they don't support us as an organization, but we have had a few rabbis secretly signpost to us or give people our number. So while they might not come out and say, oh, we give this organization a hefsha, people are still signposting.
Okay, that's a step.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've got here, do you think schools should be allowing you to go in and help educate pupils, just like people go in and educate about online safety?
110%. But I mean, in the early days, I developed an educational program to go into the more FRMA schools, primary schools. I worked in collaboration with the NSPCC, and we produced, in my opinion, a brilliant sort of like a mini educational series that was per school, where you can just train the trainers and then they take it into their schools and they deliver it how they want. It was just a way of opening up the conversation, but we never got a hefsha for it. So no one wanted to kosher certify it, so it didn't go anywhere. And I know some schools get the NSPCC in to talk about pants and Childline, but I do think there is definitely an opportunity to engage in a lot more discussion with students and young people. You know, it just starts with empowerment, body ownership, and it's, you know, I'm a big fan of the government's plan for relationship and sex education. I think every single school should be made to have that. And then here's another myth that, you know, they're going to overly expose our children to sex, when it's not the case at all. It's all done in such age-appropriate ways. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And I think even if the government managed to get that into schools, that's a massive step, you know, then we don't necessarily need extra organizations going in, but yeah.
So we've also been asked, where do you advertise what you do?
So this is another funny one. We don't advertise lots because we're sort of a bit swamped. Every time there's something in the news or media, especially in the community, we get another influx of people. And every time we have advertised, it's been really hard to keep up with the demand. So when we have advertised, we've done it mostly on social media. I think we've been in the JC, put adverts in there, and the local advertisers that go into like houses in Stamford Hill and Northwest London, like the news update and things like that.
So I'm just going to ask you, there's another question which maybe they tie in. Where does the charity get funding from? And my question is, you clearly need to grow. How can that happen? Because I assume they're slightly tied into each other.
They are. It's hard. So we get funding for some salaries come from the local authority and the police and crime commissioners. So we get money in Manchester for our roles there from the Police and Crime Commissioner's office. And in London, we get from the Mayor's office. We get some grants from like the National Lottery for support groups. Where else have we got? We've had a grant from like Jewish Trials Day for counselling for children. And And then a lot of it is fundraising. The donations effectively go straight for counselling. We just try to constantly build up that kitty, because the bigger the kitty, the more counselling we can offer people. And that is mostly filled with sort of individual donations, because it's almost impossible to get grants for counselling sessions. So that's the funding. And how do we grow? I think that it's twofold problem here, because we had funding to hire a new independent sexual violence advisor in Manchester, and we had this funding from September, but it took us till now to find someone, because it is such a niche area that even if we say I really want to grow, trust me, there's so many roles I know we can fill and we should fill, and we can do the work for it because the work is there. But finding the right people, you know, I interviewed so many people, but, you know, people feel it's too much for them. It might get, you know, a bit too difficult working in a community where you're living in a community. There's so much to consider that it just took us so long to find the right people. And every time we put out an advert, it does take us a good chunk of time to find the right person and hire them, train them, and so on. So while I say we'd love to grow quicker, it doesn't go as quickly as I would like it. Aside from matching the funding, it's also trying to find the right people and train the right people.
I can understand. It's obviously a very delicate subject that has to be dealt with appropriately. Someone's asked, are you tied into Place to Be? I don't know what that is.
So that's a charity for children and young people. We are not tied in. I'm guessing that's what they mean. We are not tied in with them, no. We do know them, and we know what's going on in sort of the sector, the wider sector. So we know that if we have clients that might fit another organisation that is offering something, we can signpost there. We don't want to reinvent wheels. So if they are in a school where that school can offer support, then we do use that service. And that's
what do they, I don't know what they are, sorry. They're a national charity, I assume?
They're like an in-school, they are a charity and organisation, but they like go into schools and work on mental health and wellbeing.
Okay.
And young people.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from anybody? Okay, so just leaves me to thank you in what is, I know, a very busy week for you. Really incredible work that you're doing, and it's so interesting to hear how far you've come, and hopefully you'll go from strength to strength, because there's no doubt about the importance of what your organisation is doing. So thank you so much for your insights, your time, the stories, and everything that you've shared with us this evening. And thank you to those that contributed and asked questions. And just wishing all strength to Migdal Emunah and the awareness. That's one of the points of this evening, is to raise awareness of, you know, this does happen. It does happen in our community, and maybe there are ways that we can do something about it. So thank you very, very much.